was crying so hard, not because of the sad story or whatever, but because I was so sad that the book was ending and that I was gonna be closing the last page. Hi everyone, and welcome to my favorites shelf, a series I'm starting where I talk about a book that I've finished in the last month. I think sometimes when we've done a lot of reading for classes, like in university, we lose track of the fact that reading can be a joy too. So that's the goal of this series. I've decided to start with Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. It's a wonderful book and a very easy one to start with. So to start out, let's go over the summary that the book has on the back of it. Now this book I didn't buy because of a summary or anything. I didn't know anything about it. My friend Madeline recommended it to me and I trust her taste, and boy was she right. But this is what it says on the back of the book. Glory never gets old. Clay Cooper and his band were once the best of the best, the most feared and renowned crew of mercenaries this side of the Heart Wyld. Their glory days long past, the Mercs have grown apart and grown old, fat, drunk, or a combination of the three. Then, an ex-bandmate turns up at Clay's door with a plea for help, the kind of mission that only the very brave or the very stupid would sign up for. It's time to get the band back together. So that's the summary that's on the back. Now that description mentions the Heart Wyld, which is this huge expanse of forest that's inhabited by all of these vicious monsters and everything that's gonna kill you, basically. And as you might guess, our adventurers might have to cross through it. Now this story is told from Clay Cooper's perspective, who's kind of a retired adventurer working for the city guard at the moment. He believes that his adventuring days are behind him, but one night, an old friend stumbles on his doorstep and begs him for help. He's desperate to get the band back together to save his daughter, who is currently living in a city that is surrounded by monsters from this really vicious Heart Wyld territory. Lots of evil-aligned beings, let's put it that way. The story follows this band of adventurers as they persevere even in the face of overwhelming hopelessness and the terrors of the Heart Wyld. This book is perfect for you if you like things like fantasy, humor, found family, and D&D especially. There's even references to things like owlbears and a bag of holding, which is really cool. Under the good, we have adventure. So because it's an adventure story, there's always things happening. I love books that are really plot driven. I care about the characters a lot too, but I find it much more exciting and much easier to read if there's lots going on in the book. While I was reading this one, it felt like excitement was always just around the corner and I never knew what was going to happen next. So it was really easy to get me turning the pages really fast. Another thing I liked was that humor and tragedy were really beautifully intertwined. The story easily could have lingered and mired in the tragedy of the world and the obstacles that these adventurers face. But because that humor and levity combined with it, it pushed me through and it made me care so much more. The balance struck there is really masterful. Another thing I liked, which I've already mentioned, but is worth a second mention, is all the D&D references. There's owlbears and a bag of holding and magic and dragons and wyverns and all of these monsters and familiar terms that we understand because of D&D. So if you like D&D, this is a really, really good book for you to check out. The things I love are definitely the characters. I know that I said earlier I'm very plot focused and I like books that have a lot going on, and this one definitely ticked that box. But the characters and their growth and their realizations, especially because they're not young 17-year-olds. They're like well into middle age. Several of them have kids. It's this sense of a lifelong self-discovery, that there is always more that you can learn about yourself. And their discoveries throughout the book were incredible to watch. The other thing that I really love is that this story is told from Clay Cooper's perspective. He is not the typical hero. He's not someone who has ever considered himself front and center in the party. And the very way that he sees himself is part of the reason that I love seeing the story through his eyes. Seeing someone who's not a typical hero do amazing things is really beautiful, and it's probably the thing I love most about this book. You're a good man, Clay Cooper. If I only had one quote to share to give someone an entire sense of this book, it would be those, 6 words. You're a good man, Clay Cooper. Now, Nicholas Eames also has released Bloody Rose, which follows the daughter who is trapped in the city that's under siege. So I have that one actually on my bookshelf. I just haven't read it yet because I needed to sit with this one for a bit. And the author also has, it's called The Third Band. Now this is a third book in the series. I don't know what it's about. I don't even think we have a summary of it yet. It's supposedly going to be released in 2021, so sometime this year. So definitely snag one of those once they come out and really consider picking one of these up, because it has shuffled some things on my top favorite books list, and this takes my spot number 1 now. This is my favorite book, and I have a feeling that is not going to change anytime soon. That's the end of my first My Favorites shelf video. My next book is going to be The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I've heard some good things about it, so I'm looking forward to it. It should be a pretty quick read. In a month's time, I will have a video about it, and you can let me know what you think in the comments. If you do pick up Kings of the Wyld and start reading it, please let me know your thoughts, and maybe drop a like down below if you want to. I will see you in a month.